All right. All set.
Okay, so a person has put us in contact, somebody that engaged, something that I've done. Who is that?
I'm not sure. I thought I just randomly came across your profile and got caught up in reading it, and I thought it was just in that sense. But it it, it could
John
be.
Heinen?
Sorry?
John Heinen.
Yes. Yes, I know John's name.
Right.
Yeah, had a
It's
few
John that
introductions.
mentioned you.
So, I'm sorry, he mentioned me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Nice to know that you're being talked about.
Well, for whatever, I don't really know John, and I haven't met him properly yet. But he saw something that I was doing, and we haven't met, but he recognized something of what you're doing in what I do. And so now we're talking. And
Yeah,
so I thought it'd be a good idea to record this because what I'm doing is quite unusual. And most people don't really understand what I'm doing. And so this is our meeting for the first time and maybe the last time. And I want to see how much of whatever it is that you're doing and whatever it is that I'm doing correlate. And if it's meaningful, then this is a historic conversation. And if it's not that meaningful, it'll just be interesting to maybe you or me.
good. So I invite you to start. I was like I said, I was caught by some of the things, and I went and I looked at. Is it Sqale?
It's pronounced Sqale. For those people who know, it's pronounced Sqale with a Q.
Okay. So why don't you start telling me about all of that stuff, and we can kind of go from there. I'm curious as to what that implies in the sense of your future.
Okay, I'm going to cut to the quick because I can explain things and maybe later we can explain. But since you've asked, Sqale is an alternative economic. So our current economy runs on money as a form of exchange. It's been running for 3,000 years. I have an alternative. Okay, so it's not based on exchange. So it's potentially 3,000 years of disruption. Okay, that's my answer to what Sqale is. It provides that service. It scales literally the app scales to 1 to 10 million people. And once we get that pickup and it's verified, then we will attempt to build the second version. And the second version should be able to scale, globally. And it should provide everybody on this planet with an alternative to the current form of economy, which is based on the fundamental of exchange. If
Okay.
that happens, then we have a chance to align because it's not based on exchange. Therefore, it doesn't have all the infrastructure and superstructure, the psychosocial dynamics of competition and all the problems that we've got. And if it is genuinely an alternative and actually it's proven to work, then I think it's based on it can provide us with an opportunity for us to, not an opportunity, it improves our ability to collaborate because the base economic is not competitive, it's collaborative. And therefore, it might be able to super accelerate our ability to collaborate and thereby socially cohese and avoid many massive meta crisis, whatever you want to call them, problems that we're currently facing globally.
Okay, so if I can ask again, in a different sense, what's your desired outcome?
That's tricky. For me, my own personal one is that I've been working on anything that's effectively accelerating our ability, not anything, specific techniques to assist us in achieving global unity.
Okay. And let's say what would be the top 5 areas of improvement?
I've written a book called Fulcrum, and in it, it's got 7 system hacks, which if we do these practices, one of them is the economic scale. And there's various other ones, one in education, one to do with how we read, write, how we watch videos, and in fact, how we're doing this. Another one is to do with maths. There's a maths hack that I've become aware of and I've written about. And so I've got 7 systems that have fundamental alternatives that seem to together self-support self-support one another, that seem to, I wouldn't say define, but enable an alternative complex psychosocial system, a manifold, if you want to call it that.
Okay. And if there was something that I could do to help you get to where you're going, what would be the most important thing that I could bring to the table?
Your presence now, and if our engagement is significant enough, then this was recorded. Because this is recorded, we share it forwards to our respective networks. Other people that perhaps respect you might look at it and they go, oh, okay, this is significant, and they share it forwards. And because we're sharing it forwards through Sqale, when they reach this, they've received this through Sqale, they go, oh, this is significant, I'm going to share it forwards through Sqale. We generate revenue. And at some point during this conversation, the people who are listening now have an opportunity to direct the money that we're generating as we are sharing this conversation.
Okay, and are you speaking in the terms of money as in the currency, the financial currency of the world? So in pounds or dollars or yuan or whatever? No?
Yes, in the sense that when they share it forwards, they translate whatever money they've got, yen, dollars, whatever, and
Okay.
they effectively transform it into this alternative economic. So there's a one-to-one relationship. So if somebody right now says, this is really interesting, I know a couple of people that will be interested in this conversation because of what they are doing in their projects and so on, they have to hear about this, and they share it forwards with $1 or $10 or $100, all right? And what that means is that they get $100, they just stick it through our PayPal account. I stick it on PayPal. We don't care about the $100. We'll just keep it there. But we'll give them the equivalent in credits, and they share forwards the credits. It's got a one-to-one relationship. So any one credit in our system is equivalent to, in fact, 1 cent. Okay, so it's 1 cent to 1 unit, 1 credit. So it's a one-to-one relationship. So when somebody receives it with $1 or the equivalent of $1, the equivalent of $10, 100, whatever it is, there's actually that amount of money sitting in PayPal somewhere. Okay, so it's a one-to-one relationship. But because of the fact you can only share credits through our system, because the economic is different, it means that we've just changed how money works. So instead of it being based on exchange, it's being based on sharing forwards. It's basically share whatever you value with people you value. So it's not about buying, selling, or selling anything. It's not about marketing. It's all about, if this is valuable, share it forwards. Be selective about who you share it forwards with. It's not about posting it out there to 100 people. It's about going, who do I know that's really going to get this and is really valuable in this conversation, really wants to hear what's going to happen and what's going to result from us too, and how we invite the people who are watching right now to be participating actively, because we're just a recording, we're dead to them. However, in their live response, something might pop into their heads. And that's the bit that's important. Okay. So yes, us having a discussion for the first time we've never met will be valuable. Something hopefully will emerge from me or maybe from you between us, but perhaps something will emerge in them. Okay. And if that happens, that might be the thing that's really valuable. And so the invitation, perhaps we may say later, is if, for example, they need $10,000, can sharing this video generate the $10,000 for somebody who's watching this that needs the $10,000 to get social validation for the next step? Okay, so it's all about feed forwards. It's all about sharing forwards. It's all about the next person and being of service to the next person, not the person who recorded this, not the people who created it, not the people in the past. It's for the people in the future. And so everything that I do is about empowering the people that are ahead of us. But sometimes we can kind of like get out with or I can. I've not had this kind of conversation with this level of intensity with anybody, because most people can't catch what I'm doing, but I'm really going for it with you and anybody else who is watching this.
Fine, that's good. I'm glad. Is there any repayment in the transaction of pushing things forward?
No, what happens is that because the money's all going forwards, going outwards to the people sharing, the act of sharing, you get this distribution. So I can show you a graph on the app, and basically the money's all. In fact, can I show you that right now?
If you like to, yes.
Okay, very briefly, because we are going to end this in a few minutes, because that's been very kind of you to ask me, all right, about this. But I want to kind of bring a closure to this because it'll just go on for too long. Oh, you have to enable me to share my screen.
Okay. We're just using the blue one up on top then. And I'll hit the share button.
Okay. That's okay. But if you allow me to share, so you have to enable me to share my screen.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not very good with. Let me try. I'll stop this share and see if I can give you the share screen. And one participant, multiple participant. Sorry. Advanced sharing options. I'll just take one participant can share at a time. Multiple participants can share. Dual monitors. You can share. Okay, so it looks like all participants can share. And who can start sharing when someone else is sharing? Oh, the host only. Okay, so that should be good by the looks of things.
Yep, it's working. I haven't set up my other screen, so it's going to be a little bit clumsy. But here it is. So this is it's just like it's not very sexy. It's basically just a bank account, but it's showing your values. I don't want to go into it in great detail, but I want to show you just, for example, the Howie threads of change. This is a woman that's producing some change effect in Africa. I could share it with you, and maybe I'll share with you later if you're interested. I value it, I share it, or I can support. I'm going to show you some details. If I hit open, it takes me to the site. Because this is taking so long. Oh, okay, Howie threads of change. And there she is, Sandra. She talks about it. There's another video about it. And share through Sqale. If you share through Sqale, you just go back to the screen and you can share forwards.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So this is the community, and I don't want to go into it in great detail, but anybody that's watching could look at it. So what's happened is that this is, for example, a distribution graph of the people who've shared it forward since the event about 2 weeks ago. So I shared it with a bunch of people. I shared it with Sandra. She shared it forwards to a bunch of people, but they haven't accepted. I've shared it forwards, and several people have accepted. Brian, Iona, and Julie, and Bahati, and Karen. I can see by the lines. And also you can see how much I've shared with them. So when I gave it to Iona, I gave her about $2. When I shared it to Julie, I gave her about $2. And Julie has then given it forwards to Glenn and Matthew. And she's added more money. So she received it with $2 and she gave it forwards with 500 credits. That's about $5 to Glenn and about $3 to Matthew. She thinks it's valuable enough that she is sharing it forwards. She's adding her own money and she's sharing it forwards. They have not accepted it, and therefore it has failed. It's only when people realize that only if you share it forwards does it work. Okay, so Bahati received it with 100 credits and he successfully shared it forwards to a person called Matthew. Or Karen received it with 10 cents, 10 credits, and she shared it forwards with 20, in effect doubling it when she gave it to another person called Julie. So the money's going forwards. However, you can also hit support, and that gives money to the content creator. And that's Sandra. So you can give money to the originator if you wish to. So when you say, so if this, for example, went viral and it ends up with lots and lots of people with, just $1 or $2 or $5, but in total there's like 100,000 people, what you can do is you can hit the support. So when you get your $1 or $2, you hit support, and it'll give her the $2. So effectively, you're slowing down the virality. So instead of it being used to share, you're using a little bit of it to support her. But that button should only be viable once it's got to a certain number. You want all the money to be basically used to share. So when people say, I want to support this, don't support it. She doesn't need $2. She needs, I don't know, $1,000. Okay. So you need to share that money. So use the $2 to share it forwards, increase the number of people that think that are interested in this, find the right people for her, because it's it's in Africa and it's to do with fashion, and so it's a mixture of fashion and service, social service. It's a mixture of things. Find the right people, it distributes, and eventually, hopefully, 1,000 people, 2,000, 10,000 people look at this thing, and they all have $1 or $2, and then they support her. Okay, so the money doesn't go back; it's for the next project. It could be for her, but she might then, get the 10,000, and then she funds something, and it might be one of the people who are sharing it forward. So in our case, if we wanted 10,000, what's it for? I don't know. So I put it open to the people watching. So if somebody says, if I had the $10,000, this is what I think we should do next. Based on this conversation we're having, I think the 10,000 should be for this. We go, oh, that sounds like a good idea. Let's give them the 10,000. Okay. And so how do we do this? And it's about making decisions collectively. And so there's a whole new world about how we do things if the money is going forwards and it's not based on exchange. With that, I would like to you might have a few more questions, okay? But I want you've been very kind in asking me about these things. But I would can I take us in a slightly different direction, or would you like to give some feedback? What's your immediate responses to everything that I've said?
Um, my immediate thought is that I agree with you in the context of pushing things forward. I think that's dynamic. But I wonder at one level, what happens to the people who are behind you, so to speak? If they are in need, can they get put into a forward position by something, or does it have to be based on their own ability to put that forward position in?
I think that we should be of service to each other. So if I think something's valuable and somebody gives me something for $1, I share it forwards that $1. I'll add $1, share it with the second person. My job's done.
Okay.
I've invested, I've improved, great. At some point, I produce something and I think it's valuable. I originate something and I say, I think this is valuable. And I trust one or two people and I give them $1 each. It's up to them to share it forwards. If I've been of service and shared forwards things of value, then presumably I'm hoping that if somebody then produces something of value and they just share it with one or two, not advertising, not marketing, they don't have to do a big clever presentation. They just say, this is my contribution. And it's for the people who receive it to go, this is actually valuable. I'm going to share it forwards. And if that happens, what should be happening is the things that are of value are shared forwards. And we're in a culture of sharing things forwards. And hopefully the right content finds the right people. Okay. And so it's not about getting anything like now. It's about going, share it forwards, see what the social result is, and go, that worked. Okay, share other things. Oh, okay, that works. And at some point, add whatever it is that you want to contribute and see if that gets shared. And hopefully, in that culture of receptive state, we're not really pushing. We're sharing, and then people pull. They pull through the network. There's no pushing. We don't have to push anything. We can whisper. We can whisper something. And then if that whisper is good enough and the person hears it, they go, wow, that's really good. I've never heard anything like this. I'm going to share this forwards. This could change the world. I'm going to share this forwards. Okay, what should we do tomorrow? Oh, well, actually, for tomorrow, I think we should do this for tomorrow. Okay, we hear the right thing that we should be doing for tomorrow. So there's lots of other culture, a different culture where we're listening. It's all about the receptive state. It's not about the talker, it's about the listener. And so if we've got an economic that supports the listener, not the presenter, not the talker, not the person on the stage, not the person with the microphone, not us talking, but the person listening. So you're listening right now, but other people are listening. And when you talk, I'm going to be listening to you, and everybody's going to be listening to you. And if we're empowered by an economic and other things in our receptive state, the world is very, very different.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing all of that with me. I'm sure I'll have more questions as I think through this. My first question to you is: did you open up and have a look at my book, the digital copy?
No, I took, because I constantly get distracted throughout my life. People say, "Oh, go and have a look at this. Oh, go and have a look at that." And I go, "Okay, I'm going to have a look." And then I come back to the person who recommended it, and they've gone. They're not interested. They're not interested in my response to it. I just go, "What's the point of that? I don't understand." So when somebody recommended you, I'm very happy to meet you, and I want to meet you. Okay, so sometimes I have looked at other people's content and stuff. I think I looked at yours briefly, and I just thought, wait a minute, you're an interesting person. Why is this person connected us? And I'm interested in exploring this. So if you could give me a little bit of background and I can respond to you, that would be quite nice. And maybe my response to you would be valuable. And anybody else who listens to this might I don't know. People that I know me might listen to you and go, "Oh, wait a minute, this Richard person is quite interesting." Okay, and what can be done? All right, so it's a conversation of action. Okay, a receptive listening. Is that okay?
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
apologize. I haven't read anything. Don't worry. You know,
No, and I ask that to find out where I should start telling you stuff. So if you had read or looked at the book, then the place to start would be a little further in. But with you, I'll start at the foundation. I've spent basically, and I'm still involved in the financial services industry, but after approximately 24 years, the company that we built was starting to see things, or was starting to look at things in a different way than uh, what I wanted to see. And I realized that there was a fundamental violation in the project of this thing that they call financial literacy, that the money guys are all about. And if you're not a financially literate person, well, how can you possibly be? So my first intent in writing the book was to share a little bit about me and my story and how I got into the investment business in the first place. Because number one, I dropped out of high school to pursue a career in automotive mechanics. I love hot rods and performance cars, and I spent a lot of time at the track and enjoying myself and building cars for other people and having fun. But it wasn't something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life, was to run this garage and see what was going. And I was approached by a fellow one day, and he kind of said that he was having a problem and if I could help him out in some way. And I very quickly understood what he was bringing me to the table to do, which was to go out and help people create a financial strategy so that when they get old, like I was going to be at some future point in time, that having enough money to survive your so-called retirement years became a very realistic perspective for me to, let's just say, expand, excuse me, what my sort of undercover goals were. What was the purpose of me doing this? Was it just for me? Was it just for the other people? And it was interesting because as time went on, it became more and more a combination of I help you, then through that help, you're going to be helping me. So I sell you an investment product. I get paid a commission for making that introduction. And as I spent the majority of my life in that business, I recognized that people do the same thing because they're afraid to stand out on their own. And We built a business that we grew from 9 million Canadian dollars, and over 15 years, we hit our first billion. But that wasn't the exciting part. The exciting part was the next 2 years where we hit 13 and 14 billion respectively. And I started asking myself, what's going on? What am I missing here? And I decided to take a trip with my family. I had been more of a workaholic person. I didn't spend as much time with my family. And I said, come on, guys, we're heading down to Disneyland. And I wanted to go somewhere where I'd never been and where my kids could maybe appreciate and have a memory of some really fun times with their dad. So we did. We had a riot. But while I was there, I started to notice in this strange place that I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning with all of these thoughts that kept coming into my head. And one of the thoughts was very simply that all of this money was coming into our company because of something called past performance. In other words, this investment made this much money per year for the last, let's say, 14 years. And in my case, that's the exact example. We had an investment vehicle that was paying somewhere around 14% per year compounded, all on a tax-free basis. And it was actually very interesting. But what I noticed about all of these people and all this huge volume of money was that nobody was telling anybody about why they should own the investment other than look at its past performance, look what it's done for the last 15 years. And that, quite frankly, is a violation of the terminologies in something called the simplified prospectus, which gives you your investor rights. But your investor rights are useless if you don't have anything to grab onto. And that's kind of the loophole. So I watched all of these guys violate the simplified prospectus's definition that past performance is not an indicator of future results. And when that happened and I realized our exponential growth, I decided, no, it's time for me to get the hell out of here because this is all going to come tumbling down. So I went to my partner and I said, hey, I've just figured something out and I need to spend some time with you because I think it's critical for the survival of the business. And he looked at me and he said, what do you want to tell me? And I said, well, I think it's time that we start looking at a hard asset class like gold, oil, gas, and real estate to be a place for where all of this other money that grew could come in and support itself when the tables were turned. Well, the sad part is I resigned because my partner said if I can't stick through the tough times, which I had already done of 14 years, and I said, okay, well, I'm not going to sit here and watch you crumble your business. So I told him that I was going to resign and that I wanted my money out of the company. And he was a gentleman about that and promised me that I would get my payout as was in the shareholder agreement. And I figured that he would honor it and everything would be cool. And he did, and he honored it. And I was grateful for that because at 46 years of age, from a guy who really didn't think he was going to be much of anything other than a race car builder, I ended up, if you will, making my first million at 46 years of age. And it's not a big deal. It's just a matter of understanding that those implications of that money that I was managing for my clients, if I had gone to my client and said, I'm leaving the business, you can, do this or you can do that, or you can stay on with another advisor, whatever. I recommend that you stay on with another advisor, but I couldn't tell them to sell their investment because it would be considered a violation of the terms of business. In other words, if all of a sudden my partner saw me selling the investment out of the company that we were building and investing that money someplace else, that was going to be a big boo-boo as I was managing somewhere around 50 million for 127 families. So I decided to pack up and leave. And a few years after I reclaimed some time with my kids on October the 18th, 2008, I was having a coffee in the morning and reading the business section in the paper, and it said, wanted, new financial order. And it was Sarkozy and Merkel who were walking in France and discussing the fact that the financial system was broken. And when that happened, I realized that I was the person who was going to fix the break. And the only way to fix the break was to do something that nobody else had done. And then all of a sudden, uh, the inner voice came out and it said, you're going to introduce a system called time equity. And time equity will.
Yes, sorry.
And that time equity would become the way of the future by the elimination of capitalism and all the things that capitalism stands for, which is crime, corruption, greed, manipulation, poverty, genocide, and war for the largest parts. And I realized that people wouldn't do that as I started writing the book and gathering information. And as I was, writing and creating and writing and creating, I started to recognize that there was something in the context of a part of me that wasn't attached to me that was telling me what to think. And then I was taking that thought and I was writing it down on paper. And then over the course of 12 years, I actually wrote and completed my book. It's called The Capitalist's Worst Nightmare, The Crucifixion of Capital. It's all in our communication. So you can get a free copy of the book. And basically, the process was that time would create equality because, yeah.
Okay, so you've spoken quite a lot. Before we go into this next phase, or is it a final phase or the next phase?
I can kind of blend it into the next two things in the context of where my interest in pursuing what you're all about may start to generate some idea.
Okay, but are you about to just conclude something quickly, or if we're going to go into this next phase, can I have a little response to what you said so far?
Yeah. So I'll just finish up on this really quickly, okay, and you can ask a couple of questions. So anyway, I launched the book in 2020 after 12 years of writing, editing, researching material, and largely including time systems. So I became a student of time and learned a tremendous amount and tried to figure out and did figure out how time could become the alternative for capitalism by simply removing the lack of transparency. And once the transparency was gone, we can conclude that, number one, man can't bastardize time. And then once we have that, that creates a rebuilding of trust and equality in society. So I can wrap up there for you to ask any question that you have at this point.
Okay, the phrase that you just used just now, though, was writing is terrible. This is why AI would be useful. It would actually have the transcript and say, like, that bit. I'd be able to read what you said and stuff. It's like, okay, inviolate. The word that I had that popped into my head was time was inviolate, but that wasn't the phrase you used. You can't be manipulated by man, something like that.
Oh, well, time cannot be manipulated by humans. Time's been running for 4.5 billion years.
Okay, but before we go into it, I just wanted to park that a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very happy to go into that. I'm just going to do a little review of what I've heard. And then we will approach this last bit. And this last bit is, I've playfully called myself a time lord. Okay. So I played around with time since I was an adolescent. Okay. So that's one thing. The other aspect to do with time is that the economic that I've got, the vector fundamental, is temporal. It's temporal. And so I think there's a correlation. And when I remember going through your thing and it was to do with time, and I went, oh, okay. As soon as I saw that, I was like, great, let's have this conversation. So I'm interested in the mechanisms or insights that you have. Okay, if you've got specific concrete mechanics, that would be great if we could talk about those. If you don't, I've got the mechanics that hopefully complement. the insights that you've got, and the strategies maybe, and various structures that you've developed. I hope. I don't know. And anybody who's listening is interested in time, they will, oh, okay, I'm interested in time. Okay. Is that okay? Can we do that just in this next part, probably the second half of this conversation?
Yeah, I don't want to overly elaborate on it, but I will say this. After sort of studying a variety of different aspects of time, I came to a very interesting conclusion based on the research. And very simply, um, the original, let's say, cycle of time is lunar. In other words, instead of 12 months and 12 full moons, our reality is actually 13 months with 13 moons. And that's a natural woman's menstrual cycle. So that actually coincides with the energy of who we are in the planet and the energy that the planet is creating, okay, by having those 13 moons. So it was developed as something called the 13-month, 28-day calendar, or 20-day, depending on which way you wanted to go on that. But I'll explain the 13 months, okay, which I've already done. But the 28 days lines up perfectly from the standpoint of an accounting perspective. And in fact, up until recently, there were actual companies that were running on a 13-month, 28-day calendar because Monday the 1st lined up on Monday the 1st, month after month. Okay. So it allowed for empowerment without fear and manipulation. And in 1932, the what they call the predecessor to the United Nations, the League of Nations, was going to switch the time system in America and subsequently around the world to this 13-month, 28-day calendar because it aligned things, like I said, so perfectly. And on the transition date, which was December 31st, 1932, going into January 1st, 1933 was going to be the first day of the new time system based on those 13 and 28. And the Vatican and other religious organizations and other crime organizations and financial institutions said, no, we're not going to allow this to happen because it's cheating us of all that we can get from the people. And that was a very important lesson because as a student of finance, as I was getting all my different licenses, I understood that as an example, the bank doesn't really explain to you how they charged interest on a mortgage given all of these different days of the month of the year. Okay. So all of a sudden, the big picture of the, let's just say, the crookedness of the system was fully exposed, and it went deeper than, little things. It was huge. When I found out that these things had happened, and you can find them in books, you can read about it. It's not stuff that I'm making up, but you can find all this stuff, for yourself. And the people that were changing and talking about the changes of time, they were all the ones that introduced all those different complexes. So once you have a 13-month calendar and 28 days, now your rent payment comes out on the 1st of every month, and every month is a Thursday instead of what is your date of rent next month, the month after, the month after. Yes, it's the 15th, but it could be a Tuesday, it could be a Sunday, it could be any day. And it creates discomfort and disassociation and lack of trust when you have all of these different factors considered in. So the powers that be at the time all of a sudden started to arise because they wanted to have, let's just say, what their path was. They want it to be hidden from the daily public, but not hidden to the point of where no one could find it. So what they did was they put it in places that were in front of your nose. So there's a book written called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, and it clearly dictates that debt is eliminated through genocide and war. And the families that are involved in that are the big money families in New York and in London, England, and in the other financial capitals that Rothschilds, with his 5 sons, monopolized really to their advantage six major world banks that became the banking foundations for all of the world. And again, all of this is, you can look all this stuff up. Uh, it's easy. It's all there.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, I knew I should have had a reflection on the previous stuff before we got into this. Okay, I honestly. Okay, it's now 22, just after 22. Okay. Now you've told me a whole bunch of stuff now, which is different from your narrative of your first experience. Can I reflect on either one of them?
Absolutely, David. I get a sense that you're catching what I'm saying. The only other thing is I'd like to mention what's happening now that more ties into you with that, but let's save that for the very end, because that's might be the part in the sense of the going forward thing that you're talking about.
Okay. If you could park that, put, phrase, whatever, so that you don't forget it. Because I forget things. I have to make a little note. 54, I forget things.
Hey, I'm
Okay.
67, no excuses.
No, I have excuses, but if I get to 67, I'm going to be no, honestly. Okay, so financial literacy, your history and your experience sounds interesting, practical, and then you went to the financial machinery. Very nice. The financial literacy, I meant to teach it. I'm a maths teacher. Financial literacy, exponential growth, the whole thing about mortgages and stuff, and the machinery that traps adults into the factory. Financial literacy. Yeah, so my thing undercuts it by saying I'm not interested in the current game. So it undercuts all of that. So I'm not interested in teaching kids about money because I just think that the technology itself is antiquated. It's got lots of problems. It's got a massive amount of social momentum to it. And quite frankly, it's a complete waste of time and it's destroying the world and everything else. And however, I'm meant to teach it. So, okay, so I will. Okay. But anyway, but your retirement. Right, there was a connection when you were talking, which was if my economic was the operating system, it means that people would want to be in teaching. The reason why they want to be in teaching is because they help kids who then end up being very helpful in society. It's doctors, and various things, engineers. And whenever they're being an engineer, every so often they'll go, oh, I'm going to thank that person who put me on the path of doing a bit more maths. And of course, education has to be a good thing. It can't be the machine that is now. So people that have a genuine interest in helping people, they end up being equipped with the skills to be able to help in the future. And because in the future they're doing this, they thank the teacher, and that gratitude tracking is part of our system. It's very, very simple. And it just means that vector money flow, whenever that person does anything useful like build a bridge, some part of that money goes to all the people that they're tracking value for. So their teacher gets a little bit. And of course, if a teacher teaches 180 kids a year, they're going to make, somebody's a footballer who makes millions, whatever. And so they get the retirement is based on all the consequences of their service throughout their lives. And so one of the most valuable services is being a teacher. The economics should reward people that have actually been of service. So we don't have to worry about retirement. All you have to do is just be of service. Help other people. Do things that are helpful that other people think, oh, that's really valuable. Great. So that's the connecting point. The thing about I didn't quite understand about the amounts of money, billions and so on, and yet you made $1 million. And so I was like, okay, how does that work? But I don't want to spend time talking about that. I trust you with the numbers, and $1 million, you got paid for helping people $1 billion or something, or you're servicing $1 billion or whatever that is. The point is you managed to get some money from that service, which is okay. And then you wrote this book, right? It was time equity. That was the thing I remember reading, and it was to do with time equity. Because I know that my vector thing is temporal. So for example, here we are having this conversation. Okay, so this is an hour of our time. If anybody, when somebody is watching this and they're spending an hour, okay, maybe it's just a few minutes looking at some kind of like just the clips, okay? But then they say, oh, okay, I'm going to look at this hour, and they spend an hour. wait a minute, they've just spent an hour doing this. Why? Somebody's giving them money. That's vector intent. And if they share it forwards, we have a number to indicate the passage of time, their hour, our hour. And the collective of us all watching this, so if 10,000 people end up watching this, that's 10,000 hours. Okay, and we've got the money flow through the forwards directing money flow. It means that it's $10,000 if it was just $1 each. Okay, where's all this money going? Well, it's just going outwards. But can we direct it forwards into the future? Well, it is going, but it's just going outwards to everybody. But can we, while we're listening, direct it towards, what happens if we all decide to move that dollar, even though it's going outwards, towards a mutual objective? And so there's something about time there, and there's something about the equity, the time that you talk, I talk, well, we listen. And the person listens for an hour. Okay, and we're all listening. Everybody who's ever watched this, and whoever will watch this, the totality of that, the totality of people watching, and the money flow of that. What is that? And how do we? There's something about time equity in there somewhere. Okay, so I'm interested in that. So when you then start talking about 28-day calendars and so on and so forth, it's like, oh, the inviolate time. You didn't say the word inviolate, that we cannot manipulate it. We have with our calendars, as you know. So I'm more interested in existential time, not in clock time, any form of external clocking time. But it is more in line with what you're talking about with, a daily cycle. That is a physical manifestation of orbiting planets and all this kind of stuff. And you're including the moon. Okay, fine, whatever that is. The point is, as a little experienced little monkey, it's a day. Okay, it's a day. Okay, and so what are we doing with the limited days that we've got? Okay, and it's how do we share the time that we've got? And it's finite, but it's existential. So it's experienced. So I'm interested in experiential time, not clock time. And so rebuilding, you said something about rebuilding trust. And I'm not interested in rebuilding trust with the current economy. I'm interested in reaffirming the natural trust we have between us as human beings. So I trust you. Okay, I trust people. That's why I'm a teacher. I trust the kids. And good things happen when you start with trust. But our social soil right now, in terms of our trust, is terrible. It's pathetic. It's so bad. It is sick. It is so sick. It's like soil that's been bleached of all its nutrients. And so and that's because of currency, economics, all this, buying and selling. I just think it's dreadful. And if we have the sharing economic, and people sharing it forwards, we're trusting each other. Somebody shared this forwards to a person watching, they share it forwards. That's trust. And it is valuable. And because of your book, I'm going to share your book forwards. And because they're sharing the book, there's trust. And the trust has grown through the act of sharing. And there's money flow. There's an economic for it. So, so I know I'm rebuilding, but there's something about trust and growing it again, revitalizing trust between us. And the last thing then, in terms of your I've connected what you're talking about and the attempt by the League of Nations that wasn't very successful to a calendar. In my projections, I've said, once we achieve global unity, we're going to mark it with a new calendar. And I've said Earth times 0. Okay. Because I'm saying, we can't talk about it, at this date because it's relative to the Gregorian calendar. It's Western. Well, what about the Jewish calendar? What about the Muslim calendar? What about the Chinese? Oh, look, guys, let's just start again. It's at 0. It's global unity. It's global unity. So I think we can just say 0. Okay. You can still use your own calendars. That's fine. But let's just start with a 0. And if at that point we also shift to a 28-day, lunar calendar, I go, fine, great. And now you've only just given me one little bit of your book, I'm sure. Okay. And right. And I've connected to that. Could it happen earlier? I guess so. I don't see why not. So there's a couple of associations just from the little that I've heard. I would like to know a little bit more about the equity, the temporal equity, how you actually, whether you have any mechanisms, because the mechanism of a 28 day month is like, okay, I'm not sure what the implications of that, but I trust you that it avoids certain levels of disorder that are exploited with current systems. And so I'm kind of interested as what other mechanisms you might have, but I don't know if we've got time for this. It's now 52, 10 minutes of talking, yabbing away. So have I reflected reasonably what you said and connected reasonably to what you said?
Very, very much so, David. And I'm quite excited that you are within what you're talking about, that you're allowing for the space for other things to go back to the moving forward part. So yeah, I think that I think that so far up till this point in time, our communication is interesting and worthwhile because we still haven't kind of come to the full head of conversation.
Okay, and so this is the problem that I've experienced when I've engaged people that have developed systems. And I've avoided developing my own systems through my life because you get this disorder that happens. And I'm now part of that disorder where I've had to develop this thing. And I'm talking about my thing and you're talking about your thing. And they're complex systems. And how do we compare complex systems? It's like, oh. And so it's problematic. And so that's why I wanted this recorded, so that if anybody's ever interested, how do people that are a bit older, who have gone through experiences, who are attempting to synthesize quite complex systems, how do we communicate? How do we share for the benefit of the people listening? Let's call them a younger generation, okay, either equivalent generation or younger. And how, it's part of the wicked level problem, communicating. And so I'm not sure what we can do in the next few minutes, but the next step for us, I don't know. It's been a good engagement, I'm guessing. We might want to have, right. So what do you think our next step could be? Do you want to finish off with your parked bit, the little bit that you thought before, or?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to sort of talk just a little bit about how one of the reasons I wanted to reach out to you is because of your maths. And if I could perhaps explain a little bit of that, that might encourage you in the context of a next conversation.
Okay, so maths. Do you want to talk about maths?
Okay, so in my
wait. We're only going to 5 minutes. You want to start off talking about maths?
Yeah, because it's really simple. It's not math. I just want to talk about a sort of a teaching concept.
Okay.
Okay. So in my world of time equity, there's a hub, which is time equity, and it has 12 spokes. 12 spokes are the 12 major problems. Okay. And I'll talk about one being education and largely mathematical education. Okay. The math and the education of mathematics and the implications of things that would no longer be in a world, okay, that chose not to be a part of a financial system. So now, what do we do in the context of the mathematics of it all? Well, the mathematics, I would say, I would put you into the education spoke, because mathematics is something that we're going to continue to need. We have calculations that we have not yet even dreamed of in the context of putting those things into action. So when we have the hub built and we identify all the spokes, and I've already identified 9 of the 12 spokes, and I already have 9 people who are committed to working in their area of expertise to redefine. As an example, we have healthcare spoke, I have energy spoke, I have education spoke, I have the financial spoke. So all of those spokes are leading towards solving the problems without a monetary system. So the question is what could you bring to the table as a mathematician, as a math teacher? What can you bring to the table to support a time equity concept. And I can leave it there in the sense of I could go on a lot. I've not too much, but I've gotten some notes that I would still love to share with you after maybe this conversation has a chance to sort of settle down in our brains. And the next part, what's interesting, I think you'd be very, let's just say, receptive due to the fact that what you started off with about pushing these things forward is the last part of what I want to present or talk about.
Okay, so yeah, I'm happy to talk about the maths thing, both maths, the actual core practice of mathematics, the actual discipline of mathematics,
Yeah.
and also education and the teaching of it. And I've also got something about education. So I've devoted 2 of the chapters, or whatever, my book, one to maths and one to education. So there's an overlap there in terms of spokes and systems and how do we use metaphors for these things. But yes, I'm happy to follow that up with you, and maybe to engage your group of, not maybe, if you, because you're trying to create something, and you also have, because you've been a bit of an engineer, it's quite practical. You're quite practical in thinking about things. Quite solid in your progress, maybe not. So I don't know if you need commitment from people before you bring them together.
No.
So how you assemble and bring people together is quite a trick, and I failed to do that. I'm terrible at that. I am absolutely the worst person at that. So to bring the right people together, I'm just like, nope, can't do it. Haven't been able to do it. Never been able to do it. And your method sounds as if you can do that, or that's definitely your plan. So how you do that? Yeah, I'm willing to take the next step and talk about maths either with you or with other people regarding your 12 spokes. At some point in your process, you might want to ask for commitment, and that would have to be specified as exactly what that means.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Commitment is actually almost insignificant in the context of like what your example is, which is one of the reasons why I'm excited about furthering this conversation. Because one of the people that you forwarded, I think you said it was 10 cents. And if people have that flexibility in the essence of helping for 10 cents, then it makes sense because it's part and parcel with a little bit of the alignment that I wanted to talk to you about that bring the maths and this idea of moving things forward together. So yeah, I think that our next Zoom, if you will be probably just as exciting as this one, at least for me.
Okay. If we're going to do another Zoom, would it be valuable to invite others to the Zoom, or would that make it more complicated? Because I do know when 2 people talk, we can engage reasonable amount of depth and we get to certain levels of precision. And as soon as you get groups, it stays shallow. It's very difficult to get to the levels of depth. And the thing moves from one thing to another. Even in our conversation, it will. But I'll be able to kind of keep on going down to, sorry, what's the fundamental? What's the fundamental? What's the, and so because people do have a tendency to go lots and lots of things, and because of the maths, I want first principles. What's the actual your starting points? What's your axioms of your system? And so us 2, or would it involve others?
So here's how I'll let's just say answer that question for you. I don't know. I thought I heard you might say something about some sort of monetary consideration with regards to the book. The link that I sent you, okay, is a link for a complimentary book, because I can't be a hypocrite for me to live in a world of time, but yet charge you money.
Yeah, don't worry. That's not. I had no thought on that.
Okay, so what is the thought in that is that you can download this book for your freedom. But if you read even a part of it and then you say to a few people that you know, hey, I've been reading this book. This guy gave it to me for free. I can give you the link and you can have a look at what the book is. So you're paying forward for me the distribution of my book with no cost to anybody. And if we got, as an example, 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 people, okay, that you gave a free book to on my behalf, say, hey, I talked to this guy. There's kind of some interesting stuff going on here. I'd like to get your feedback. And then if somebody comes back and says, wow, this is the greatest thing since French fries, you know, I want to I'd love to participate in a discussion. I'd love to find out what this person's doing. I don't really debate with people. It's not my intent to debate. And yet at the same time, the majority of people that want to debate with me are all PhDs and MBAs in economics and finance. And I'm like, dude, you're talking to the wrong guy. I'm the low life financial guy. Okay. So that creates, for me, again, sort of a target where it's naturally coming at you. So that would also be very helpful for you in expanding. They'll say, wow, hey, David, you did this. You sent this for me for free. How can I now reciprocate and bring that reciprocity back to you to forward again?
Okay. Okay. So, okay, it's too many things. So, um, okay. So the way I would do it is I would share through Sqale, and the way I'm going to suggest to you, because it's only recently that I've developed kind of package for it to work, is that we do a gift party. Okay. The gift party is based on you and your book. And what we do is you invite people you know, okay, connections with. Is I'm doing this gift party about my book, and hopefully they already know about your book. But if they don't, invite them, all right? And you're inviting a bunch of people, some of you know you and like your books, understand your book, and other people that don't know you, okay? And they turn up, and we do this gift party. And the gift party is going to be centered on you sharing your book, but we do it through Sqale. So part of it is you talking about the book, and then me showing people, like I showed you earlier. Okay, this is what we do. Look, share it with me. I share it with 2 people here. They share it with a few people, and we record the whole thing. And that video of you sharing your book will be put on a website and shared forwards. And when people watch it, they will watch this video about you talking about the book. They can get the book, but they also have the option of sharing it forwards. So this one video should be the one thing and the only thing that you need to do if we get the gift party right. So when anybody turns up and watches it, they go, oh, this is good, because they shared it forward. Somebody's shared it forwards to them. They're sharing it forwards with money. It's not free. It's energy, time. So we need a number for that, money. And so, so hopefully what happens is you get the virality. Okay. If we get the gift party right, I think there's enough in the pieces are there. We put the right pieces together, it goes viral. Okay. And the right people will hear and read and want to read more, and then want to engage you or want to engage the other people that are looking at it. And then you get the second order function, or the second consequential function. So if 10,000 people read your book, out of those 10,000, maybe 1,000 are really, or 100 or 10 are really switched on in a certain way, a very important way, that if they get together and then they do something that you can recognize and go that direction. Those 10 people heard whatever I was talking about, but now let's follow those 10 people, because those 10 people have got an excellent way forwards that's even better than what I thought of, or improvements upon, or details, or more specifically what the next step is for us as 1,000 people or 10,000 people or whatever. And so I think that I feel as if I've created something that potentially we can escape from our current way of doing things, which is linear. The emphasis is on the person who talked, the originator, the writer, and it's all about the person who listens. It's the concurrency of the people who listen. And therefore, we can create one website with one recording, with one description, with one book, and that's it. Okay. And then everybody else, is their responsibility to share it forwards. And if we get that right, everything's going to change. I mean, everything's going to change. And so that's what I would offer. I would offer us to create a gift party. Now that would be slightly different than us talking about the maths. So if we're going to do the maths thing, we could do that separately as a separate thing. And then do a gift party about your book. And then my tool is there to assist. Okay. How about that? Are those two possible directions we can go in?
I appreciate your thoughtfulness. Yeah, I think that we have a lot to talk about.
I know, but what happens is that process can occur simultaneously. And what I believe should be happening, and that's why we're recording this conversation, is that it ends up being linear and it ends up being us two. And I don't need to know what you know. I don't need to know what you know. I need to know that you exist. Okay, you need to know I exist. Okay, and then we need to get more people knowing that we exist. And in that process, we have discussions.
Yeah.
In that process of sharing fors and thinking about things, new things that appear and emerge between us. And we need to just basically enrich the social soil, have money flow, so that there is worthwhile in us listening to each other. You're 67. You don't need money. I'm working still. And a lot of people are working. So we need to have the money flow to justify people listening. Okay, and reading. They need to have justification for it because they're in the machine.
Oh, yeah.
They're trapped. Okay, so for me, I said, let's not do something else while that's happening. We have to do things simultaneously with a little bit of money flow. It might be a little bit, but at least we're having some kind of money flow in an alternative way, and increasing the numbers of people while I'm finding more about what you're thinking about mine, other people are finding things out, and alternatives and variations are being tested. Okay, being tested. And in the process of testing, we learn what works. So we learn as we walk. Okay, we learn as we talk. We learn as we go forwards collectively. So yes, I do wish to have another conversation with you about the maths. Maybe do a gift party. And is there anything else that I can think of?
Yeah, well, I'm really very excited about our conversation, David. Thank you so much. I love the idea of a gift party. It's actually something that I had written in to speak with you about in the context of where you want to go with this. I think you might find it a fit. I actually just, if you will, received the messages of how to do this. So this conversation with you and what your system is, it's actually really blowing my mind that these things come together at the most opportune time. And I hope that we'll be able to put something like right now, I'm heading off tomorrow for a week where I'm going to be kind of, pardon the expression, but locking myself away. So I have 7 days to dig into my mind space and come up with a couple of things, at which point one of them, as I've already mentioned, is right in alignment with gift party. And what I'll do is I'll be able to periodically drop an email because there's internet connection if I go to town. I can get into town maybe once or twice over the course of the next week that I'm going to be away. But I will definitely keep in touch with you, and probably towards mid next week, I'll send you a couple of dates that we can set up for another Zoom. And just so that you know, I do have a corporate account, so we're not restricted to 90 minutes. We can have as many people and talk, but I think our next meeting should definitely be you and I to be on the same page. And then once we've established that, I think that, or whether it is or whether it isn't. But
No. I'm happy with different pages of the same book.
oh, that's good then. So
Yeah.
that's what we'll do, and I'll give you a shout on that because I am very intrigued by what you've been speaking about, and I think it's a fit, or at least I think it's a fit that perhaps a little massaging to tweak But I see the potential in both these conversations, so I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. For me, I think that I've found the limiting factor to be people, or whatever it is that one thinks, even me. And so I absolve myself of making the judgment. I have not a great judgment of things, but so I think it should be about what works. And so if we go forwards and we share a recording, and other people go, "Oh, this is quite interesting," and that increases, then we know we're on some kind of path where it's worthwhile. It's not just between us; it's transparent to others, and other people can be involved. And so, and it's how that is how we do that nicely, so that we don't just get just people talking endlessly about lots of things. Because talking is easy. It's getting us to listen and then acting together for me. So, but okay, so good. Thank you very much for this conversation. Yeah, I look forward to whatever communiques you send. I will not be chasing a lot of information. I'm working still. I don't have a huge amount of time. But it's more to do with who are you, who am I, whatever it is that you think I think, and what can we do, and then getting other people involved with money flow, and that justifies why we are engaging. Okay,
I'm good with that, my friend.
yeah. And so let's just park it there, I guess. Thanks to John for him mentioning you. And anybody that is watching this, please share it for us through Sqale. And, take part. Either get in touch with us, get involved. But share it for us to somebody you think this sounds interesting. Our recording today may not have had that much, maybe. But if you want to be involved in the next one, maybe, get in contact. But it looks as if at least me and you, Richard, are talking about the maths, about spokes and stuff. And then this other possibility of this gift party, which we can talk about a little bit, and seeing if that can happen. That would be interesting. And that would be a good time for multiple people to come together. And maybe there's a third option that we haven't quite thought of, but we can maybe think about retrospectively based on our conversation today. Okay. But for me, it's minimal. Okay. We have to do minimal things, hour that I spent, a little bit more, and you, and then we do something else with a minimal amount of time. Right? Why? Because we want to make use of our time. You're 67. Yeah. You're 67. You're not going to be here forever. And so therefore your time with us is valuable, more valuable than mine. Yeah. And so anybody who's older is listening. They have to recognize as well, wait a minute, my time's really valuable. I'm like 82. It's like, yeah, you outrank us. 82, your time is even more valuable. Okay. So, and how do we share this together? And how do we make best use of our time together? Okay. So, yeah, I'm happy to go for another step. If we can be respectful of our time and everybody else who is willing to spend time and money flow for us to move forwards together, to see if we can find some significant, meaningful actions that we can do together to improve our situation.
I'm so happy to hear that, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Beautiful. Okay, in practicalities, that recording, if you can share that with me somehow or other, or I have access to it, I can just stick it up online somewhere if you don't mind, or if you
I don't mind, David. Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
This has been great. Thank you very much. I'm not a tech person, so as soon as Signa gets back in, she'll make sure that she puts it into place for you to receive it. Okay. Beautiful. I think I did what was right by getting the recording on it.
Better than me.
So
better than me, believe me.
Well, I hope so. And if not, I can tell you one thing. It'd be easy to repeat the conversation because I think we have a pretty good understanding of where each of us has some direction. I do with you. So I think that we'll be okay one way or another.
Oh yeah. Ours, we're fine. It's, just making sure that our path is transparent.
Yeah, I want to make sure of it myself.
Cool.
All
All
right,
right,
man.
beautiful, Richard. Thank you very much. We'll
You're
be in
very welcome.
contact.
You take
We'll
care.
see what the next steps are.
Yeah.